Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have yet another Vitae figure to take a look at with you guys, and it is another incredible looking figure straight away. However, this is another one of those figures that is kind of a re-release, as it was released a few years back, but this time it's released with a slightly different paint scheme, and obviously a beautiful base, as every one of the bases so far included with these figures has been incredible. You can see quite clearly by the title there of the species down in the left hand corner, this is the Sinraptor from Vitae. And the box, of course, has that incredibly cool window look to it, which I absolutely love. We can kind of get a sneak peek of the figure right there. And then when we turn the box around, we have the gorgeous artwork on the back. And this has been a continuing trend of mine with these new Vitae figures, kind of the artwork on the back being one of my favorite parts of the entire release, because the artwork is just absolutely gorgeous. And this is 100% another example of that. That is such beautiful artwork of a Sinraptor in its natural habitat. Incredible, incredible image right there. So without further ado, let's go ahead, break this box open, and take a look at this newest version of the Vitae Sinraptor. So here we have our base, and this base as well, just like the previous bases, looks absolutely insanely beautiful in every way. This one's a little different than some of the previous bases. As you can see, only one area of vegetation on this one, and also kind of like a bit of a rocky area over here, which the others have not had previously. You also have some more of those really cool footprints included, and just generally a different look to this one, which I really like. Again, keeping it fresh is Vitae. And then we have our Sinraptor itself, and this thing is really, really nice looking. I actually love this newest paint version of it. I love the blue here on the back, giving it a very striking appearance on what is otherwise a pretty dark looking paint scheme normally for the Sinraptor, but this newest version kind of also lightens up some of the tones of color, and again includes some nice blue on the back and the face area, maybe making this a male and the previous darker version more of a female. I'm not entirely sure. But just like the others, there is a magnet, and however, I'm a little bit too far back. I can't see. There we go. I couldn't exactly see where the magnet was from where I was positioned, but there we go. Our Sinraptor is now standing beautifully on its base and looks incredible right there. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get a closer look at this fantastic newest version of the Vitae Sinraptor right now. So we have actually reviewed this figure before, however, we're just going to go ahead and review it again because it's been so long since we have actually reviewed it. I think it's probably in our best choice to review it again. So starting up here at the head sculpt, you can see some pretty darn nice looking skin texture to the head sculpt of the Sinraptor. Some beautiful detailing here on the lower jaw, kind of like some osteoderms poking up here and there. You can see the nostrils sculpted out right there. The eyes are painted with a blackish coloration, and they also have kind of like a white dot on the eye as well. Definitely looks pretty cool, and you can see one area straight away that's a little different than the previous release. If you are familiar with the previous release, is that there's this nice blue that stripes down into the face, as the previous one did not have any blue on it at all. I think that is a pretty nice touch on the part of Vitae, again giving it just a little bit of flashiness and a pretty unique look overall. And you can see in general that the tones of color here on the head are really nice and natural looking, beautiful tones of color, and very realistically applied. As you can see, quite a few different tones of color included up here on the head sculpt. You can see like darkening here on the tip of the snout, around the eye, but then lower into the face you have some lighter colorations and stuff. Really beautifully done. You can see a mixture of the lighter and darker colors here on the lower jaw as well. Of course, the jaw is articulated and it works beautifully, very, very smoothly. And you can also see a really nice gloss coat included inside the mouth there for that extra bit of realism, giving it in general a nice wet look, which looks really, really good. And you can see some beautiful tones of color used on the inside of the mouth, as well as some fantastic sculpt and detail included in there. And then if we look inside the mouth, you can see that tongue sculpt really nicely done. And some really nice realistic paintwork in there. It appears to be like a nice dry brushing of like some reddish coloration in certain spots as well, just to give it that extra bit of realism, extra bit of color variation, and I think it looks really good. Looking over here at the opposing side of the head, you can also see that kind of blue stripe look that comes running down here on the snout, and get a good idea of what the eye paint looks like and everything over here. And you can also see that the teeth are painted pretty nicely. They're not sculpted out individually for the most part, they're kind of together. So as far as teeth being like kind of sculpted together like that, I think they've done a really good job as far as painting them. Definitely a very nice job as far as that goes. And then looking up here at the top of the head, we now have some ridges that pick up and they kind of bunch together, but then there's a little area of separation and then they kind of bunch together again. And I like how kind of random they are. Like you can see like some areas almost have like ridges missing. It's just very realistic, I would say, the way that they've sculpted those out, because they don't look like it's just kind of like one uniform look for the entire thing. They're just kind of spread throughout the entire thing randomly, and I think it's again a very nice, very realistic aspect of the figure. You can see some more really nice detailing here in the neck region as we move down. It appears as though there's like a really nice dark wash included on the figure as well, which makes all the detail pop quite nicely. And you can see a few different tones of color in the neck region. Also some nice creasing in the skin due to the Sinraptor having its head turned to the right. You can see some beautiful detailing here in the throat as well as the actual throat itself. If we close that jaw, now you can get a better idea of what that looks like. And really nice smooth transitions between those colors. You can see like a little hint of like a yellowish color here as we move down closer to the white underbelly into the throat area. And you can see it darkens beautifully and very smoothly back up to the top of the animal. You also have some more of those really nice blue stripes that kind of run down the neck region. Now it just stripes down into the body, and that continues all the way down here, and you can see how cool it looks from up above. Really, really cool looking striping effect that they've given this with that nice dark blue. And at the same time that you see that dark blue striping, you also see like a dark brown striping as well that kind of creeps through in certain areas. So again, lots of really nice paint variation to the figure. You can make out the shoulder blade a little bit right there, and then you can also see that arm sculpt. It looks really good, very nice detailing right there as far as kind of like some skin bunching up in the stomach region due to that arm being pushed into the body. Very nice gradual transition to a darker hand down here. The hand sculpt looks great. The nails are painted perfectly, just like every single one of these figures has been so far. There's some really nice paint application to these figures, and you can see some incredibly cool looking color variation here in the stomach region with that nice white, but there's also like some hints of yellow and even hints of like pink in the stomach region, which is a really cool aspect of this figure, definitely giving it an overall very realistic look. And I feel like that's something that Vitae has improved upon drastically with these new releases, is the actual application of the paint. The paint application on these newer figures, I think, is much nicer than what the previous ones were, which those ones were pretty darn nice, but the new paint application on these figures I just feel like is a lot more realistic than what we used to get from Vitae, which is absolutely awesome. But you can again see that really nice paint work there in the stomach region with that nice white, but there's also a nice dark wash that's been applied that creeps in between all of that detailing of the skin and makes it all pop beautifully. Then coming back here into the hip, you can make out the hip bone quite a bit right there. A very nice muscular looking thigh and calf, and again some really nice color variation as you have like a very dark brown, same deal up here, and then like lighter browns and stuff included within, mixing beautifully together. Coming down into that foot sculpt looks gorgeous, very nice, very bird-like, beautifully painted nails right there on the toes of the foot. You can also see the dew claw back there. And then coming back up into the tail, you can again see the skin kind of like pulling off of the tail as that leg is pulling forward. You can also sort of see the skin bunching up in the stomach region. So the movement of that leg is really nicely shown within the sculpt. And again, some more fantastic looking skin texture included on the figure. Very nice white coloration here for the underside. And again, some more paint variation, as you can see areas of like pinkish and yellowish areas kind of creeping through in certain spots, which is really cool. And then we lead out the length of the tail. You can continue to see that nice dark striping that plays off of like that light kind of almost like a mix between gold and tan sort of right there. And we have a very nice curve to the tail as we lead out the length of the tail. Nothing unnatural, really nice curve to the tail. And then looking at the opposing side, again, some more incredibly nice looking skin texture here in the neck region. You can kind of see the skin more so stretching on this side as opposed to bunching up like we had seen on the previous side. You can once again make out the shoulder blade over here, some more fantastic skin texture, and again, so much color variation. Look at all that color variation. Even though it's mostly dark tones, there's so many different variations of tones included that really makes it look very realistic. And as we run down here into the arm, you can see a beautiful transition down into a darker coloration on the hand yet again, like we had seen on the previous side. And again, the nails look really good over here as far as the paintwork, just like we had seen on the previous hand. You can also see some beautiful paintwork actually on the underside of the arms and hands there with some more variation of color. So a lot of paintwork gone into this figure. Just like the previous side, we could see a little bit of like a pinkish coloration showing up here and there in the stomach region. It seems like mostly like right by the armpit area leading into the stomach region. You see that pinkish coloration as that's what we had seen over here. And I think that's a really cool, very small touch that just really makes the realism of the figure a little bit better and just generally makes the figure look more appealing, if you ask me. And once again, we can see those beautiful blue stripes up here on the top of the dinosaur. They look very cool. You can see the general shape and structure of the dinosaur also. You can see like some girth in the stomach region. So he's a pretty well-fed animal, I would say, and I really like just the overall appearance to this sculpt. It's very cool looking. Very nice hip bone, kind of elaborated a little bit right there. Again, just like the previous side, we have like those brown stripes, and there's actually different variations of brown included. You can see a really dark version of a brown and also a dark brown, but not quite as dark as this version. So there's two different variations of dark browns here at play, and you can actually see that same deal here on the tail. If you look closely, you can see how they kind of transition back and forth and just mix very, very nicely. And then we lead down into the leg. You can see the leg stretching off of the body right there. Beautiful leg sculpt, kind of like a scoot-like appearance down the front of the leg, down into that very nice bird-like foot. Very, very nice looking sculpt on that foot as well. I love the way the foot appears as it's leaving the ground, just kind of bending the toes as that foot leads up off of the ground. Very, very nice looking. And then we lead back up here into the tail, and again, some more variation of color here on the underside with like that whitish coloration, but you see a nice mixture of like pinks and yellows included as well, just making sure it looks very flashy. And even here, like you could see quite a few different variations of color. Like you could see like a nice kind of a tannish brown, and then an ever so slightly different shade of brown, and then like a dark gray. You can see that here and there. So again, lots of really, really realistic looking coloration to the figure, and you can see those stripes continue to run out the length of the tail. They look absolutely beautiful to that very nice tip. And even here on the underside, you can see how it's kind of like an off-white, I would say. It actually has like a mixture of a pinkish coloration here, then transitions to like a mixture of like yellow and an off-white sort of right there. And then we get to a brighter white here on the second half of the animal. So it's really cool how much variation of color is included on these newer Vitae figures. They're honestly painted to the max. You could also see the magnet right there because that's how it connects to the base. But this Sinraptor from Vitae is just absolutely gorgeous, like every one of these figures have been so far. And then we have the base. And the base looks incredible here on this release. You could see some beautiful texturing to the earthy area. Again, lots of variation of color, like you have kind of like cracks and crevices and stuff over here, but then you get to more of like a smoother sort of a texturing, and there's just like a lot of difference to the base. You can see some rocks and everything laying on the base, look very nicely done, and the color variation on the base as well is about as realistic as you're ever going to find. It honestly looks incredible the way this base has been painted. It really does look like a genuine piece of the earth. It is that good. You can see some more of that vegetation over here, whereas this one actually is quite different from some of the others. A lot of the others had like green areas of like almost like a mossy appearance, but this one does not have any vegetation at all except for this one right here. So very cool as far as that goes. And then you have this different area over here. It's like a very rocky area that the others had not had. So again, lots of difference. I like that they keep making the bases unique and everyone has its own individuality. And then we can also see some footprints of a smaller dinosaur that has also come through here. So I really love that they include these footprints. It's a very realistic aspect of the bases, and I think just sets the overall realism over the top as far as these bases go. But this is yet another incredible base, sporting a really nice kind of soft underside here so that it's not going to damage anything that you put it on. It's also not going to hopefully slide around much or anything like that. So the base, the dinosaur, everything as far as this set goes is incredible. Just like with the previous releases, again, you have a magnet in the foot. You'll find the spot on the base that does include the magnet, which is actually almost hard to find consistently on these bases due to the magnet area being hidden like the base. It kind of looks like again, part of the ground, which I really love that they do that. But at times it'll take a minute to actually find the spot. It's right there. So we're going to put the foot of the Sinraptor on that spot, and then if I could find it again, I'm back too far. Oh, there we go. It's now on that spot. I actually think I like it like this. A lot of the other ones have been kind of facing the other direction as far as like the vegetation in the front, but I think I kind of like it kind of like stepping off of this little mound right here. I really like it as far as the appearance of the figure on the base like that. I think it just generally looks really cool kind of walking off of that mound. So as far as a size goes, for our Sinraptor, the length is going to be at about the 9-inch range, or about 23 centimeters. And then for a height, I'd say that this is probably the highest area. You're looking at about just a little over 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters. And then for a length on the base, you were looking at about the 6-inch range or 15 centimeters. The Sinraptor here that we have is actually the exact same sculpt as the previous release, just with some updated paint. So if you have the previous Sinraptor release, you'll definitely have a good idea, obviously, of what the size of this figure is. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line, next to our Vitae Sinraptor, and hopefully next to these figures here, you'll have a pretty good idea as to what the overall size is. I would say it's probably a small approaching medium-sized figure. I think it's safe to say it's like a medium-sized figure. Really nice size, honestly. It's actually a beautiful size. And for another size comparison, here are the two newest sculpts from Vitae here included with the Sinraptor to help, again, give you an idea of what the size of these other two figures are, as you have the Dinosaur and the Genuine Pelta next to our Sinraptor. And if you happen to have the previous Sinraptor release again, and you might be interested in these two newest Vitae figures as far as the new sculpts go, then hopefully this as well will help to give you an idea of the size. So this 2020 release of the Vitae Sinraptor is absolutely awesome. I'm not always a big fan of kind of re-releases with new paint schemes, but when you release something that looks as beautiful as this and really updating the overall appearance to the figure, the paint and everything, and then giving it a really cool base, there's no way I could ever be anything but enthusiastic about this release. The overall appearance to this newest Vitae Sinraptor, as far as the paintwork goes, I love it. I love this new paint scheme. I think it looks extremely, extremely appealing, and I love the fact that they've added blue here now on the back. Again, if you have the previous release, you can now have like a male and female version, and I could probably see you fitting the female version on the base as well if you would prefer to put that on there and kind of display them together, create kind of a mating pair. I think there might be a spot you could maybe drop the other version in there next to it. But again, I think it looks really, really cool, and the paintwork on this one is, in my opinion, much better than the previous release. I feel like there's so many different tones of color included on it now, which the previous one did look really, really good as far as the paintwork goes, but they've just upped the overall realism of the paintwork now on this newest release, again, making it just look extremely realistic with so much paintwork, so many different tones of color included, and then now a little bit of a flashier look to the figure overall, which, in again, my opinion, is really awesome because I like that they didn't just re-release the figure with the base. And even though that's actually really cool because I love the fact that I can now have the Chelantysaurus with a base and no longer have any type of standing issues or anything with that figure, this, however, gets the base treatment and a new paint scheme, and I love absolutely everything about it. The base as well is incredible, just like every single base has been so far. You have a very nicely sculpted base. Again, probably the single best looking bases that I've ever seen on dinosaur figures like this, and that goes as far as both the sculpt and paint. The sculpt is insane. There is just so much to the bases as far as like difference within the base and just really nice texturing, beautiful rocks, really nice realism as far as like footprints of other species of dinosaur that have walked through. Just generally the sculpt is off the charts, but the paintwork as well is incredible. Again, so many different tones of color included on the base, just very, very realistic earthy tones included, and everything looks again about as lifelike as you're probably ever going to find. And then including that little area of vegetation is just like the icing on the cake as far as this overall set goes. So if you would like to pick this up, I will include a link in the description to where you can do just that, so make sure you check that description, go buy this fantastic new 2020 release of the Vitae Sinraptor, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.